Hi, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Your Career Questions. We are late today. When you do this enough, you'll find out that there are going to be days that nothing goes right. And this was one of those days. And thank God it's Friday. But we're delighted for you to be here. We've got some great questions. That's one of the advantages of sometimes running off schedule is that you end up getting a lot of good content. So we've got some great stuff for you today, and we're happy for you here. Happy for you here. Happy for you to be here. Listen, the purpose of this stream is to give you information to help you do a better job in understanding the job search market and to understand how it works. A lot of people, they don't interview that much in their life, and so they just really don't get a really good feel for how the job search market works, what really goes on behind the scenes with recruiters, corporate or search firms, or even the contingency agencies. And so that's what we're here for on Fridays, is to answer your questions. And so we've got some good ones today. Good Lord, we start off in the far northwest in the Big Sky country. Kelly and Billings, we do not use last names. We will use your town name unless you just want us to be anonymous. So put your questions in the chat, and we will be monitoring that and be happy to answer your questions. Okay, what's the difference between behavior and values interviews and a traditional interview? Well, that's a great question. For years, you would go to an interview and people would want to know what you did and how you did it, and what else did you do, and can you do this? And it was all about determining whether you could do the job. And there's still an important element of that in the interview. But behavior and values interviewing is really more about your resume should be able to tell us if you have the skill set and the experience to do the job. Now, we may vet that a little bit during the course of an interview, but we're more interested in a behavior and values interview to ask questions about whether you're going to be a good fit for the company. And, we may ask you to tell us about a time when you had a conflict with your boss, or tell us about a time when you were really, really successful. What did you tell your team? We're looking for situational answers. We're looking for values answers. We're looking to see if you have some judgment. And so that's what a behavior and values interview does. We started, when I was in the search business, we started doing behavior and values interviews in the mid 1990s. And it was an extraordinary change for us. We had been asking the traditional questions and we were successful. But when we turned to behavior and values, specifically Brad Smart's approach to chronological interviewing with behavior and values, we absolutely knocked the ball out of the park. And I'm a great believer in behavior and values interviewing. I'm a great believer in his book, and it's called Top Grading. Back in the 80s and 90s, Jack Welch built GE into this great powerhouse. Now today, GE is restructured, but back then, Jack Welch restructured it from Reginald Jones's days of running GE. And what Reginald Jones did was, the company Jack Welch transformed it to were two different companies almost. And now GE is yet again transformed. Jack Welch was a great leader. He was remarkably successful in getting top talent into his organization. Matter of fact, that was one of his key duties as chairman and CEO, as he explained it many times. So, Kay, I hope that answers. Kelly and Billings, I hope that answers your question. If anybody has any additional questions about an answer, you can always email me at info@johngself.com, or you can schedule a call with us at our website. Go to the bottom of the page and hit the button that says Talk to John. I think there's an audio, there's a video, I think there's even a WhatsApp option. So I hope that helps you. Is there a way to anticipate interview questions? This is from Jerry in Memphis. Jerry, there certainly is. First of all, the core of that is look carefully at the job summary. Now, if you're at the executive or management level, sometimes these job summaries are really crappy. They're not very fair to you because they don't really tell you a lot. It's more about promoting the job that it's opening, and they're just trying to get a bunch of resumes in. Well, that's stupid recruiting, and there's a lot of that goes on every day in America. Check out my newsletter at Substack Guiding Your Career, and you'll see what I'm not a recruiter anymore, and I'm kind of lambasting them for doing some stuff that's really pretty stupid and does not produce good quality results. So, so getting back on point, can you anticipate interview questions? Jerry, you can. And one thing is to go to the summary. If you're an executive person, you're going to get more meat, hopefully, in the summary. But you can read between the lines. If you have any experience, you can read between the lines, and you're going to kind of think about some questions that you would ask if you were interviewing for this job. Now, we also recommend that you break the job down by categories. Let's say you're a senior VP, or let's just say a VP, and you have an operating a component of operating departments where you're going to have governance, not governance to a board, but governance in your reporting relationships. You're going to have marketing. You're going to have human capital. You're going to have financial management and operations. And so break it down, and in each category, list your strengths from your core value brand statements. What are your core strengths? And then by each core strength in that category, list some examples of successes and maybe think of some stories that can illustrate that. Not long stories, short stories that you can wrap around the facts. And that's how you can anticipate questions, because when you look at all those categories, then you also say, well, if I was doing the interviewing, what questions would I ask? And what this does, using a core and categorical form, and if you become a member of our organization, our career job search community, these are the kinds of things that we provide you on an ongoing basis. But it's called a core and categorical form. Categorical interview questions are: how many days of accounts receivable did you have? And the core questions are really about your behavior and values. So we can help you learn how to anticipate questions. Remember, there's only 80 or 90 possible interview questions to begin with. Okay, what are the top 3 best career management strategies? Barbara in Phoenix. I hope it's a great day in Phoenix, Barbara. The thing I'd say, first of all, is understand your value. Number 2 is to have a career plan, and it needs to be in writing. When it's up here, it's not disciplined. It's not top of mind awareness. You may have an idea where you want to go with your plan, your career, but it's not the same as writing it down. And when you write it down, you can perfect it. You're looking at it, and it becomes more real, it becomes more dynamic, and it becomes more effective. The research shows that people with written plans tend to be very successful. Okay, and the last thing is networking. And oh, by the way, I think you should network. With AI and automation, which we're going to talk about that. We have a question about that. I saw when I came on the air here, came live, I saw a question about the new New York law. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But AI and automation is going to dominate recruiting from now on. It is never going back. So if you're holding out hope to go back to the old days, don't. It's a waste of time. So what you want that network to do is be able to tell you about jobs that are not posted. 60 to 70% of all the great jobs are not listed anywhere. They are filled by referral, and there's numerous studies and research confirms this year after year after year. So you need those networks to help you identify jobs that are not posted. And number 2, when you find one of those great jobs, hopefully that network person can take you in the side door and not have to put up with the computers. Okay, let's see. Why do I need to be concerned with a layoff? I do a good job. My boss and I have a good relationship. This is Ronnie in Wichita Falls, Texas. Ronnie, that's good that you have a great relationship. I'm glad you're doing a good job. But let me tell you something. There is no guarantee that you won't be laid off. I don't care how good you and your boss are. You may be great fishing buds. You may even be related by marriage. Okay, in a smaller town like Wichita Falls, that's entirely possible. I was in a hospital once nearby over in Vernon, Texas, which was the home of the largest ranch, one of the largest ranches in the U.S., the Wagner Ranch, and everybody at the table was related to somebody in a management retreat we were doing. So everybody was married to somebody's cousin or somebody's brother, or kind of In Vernon we laughed and said the separation is not zero point 0.6, it's 0.25. But you need to be concerned. When Google laid off all of those people, there were a lot of people that had good relationships with their boss, and there were a lot of people doing a really good job. Okay, but when uncertain economic times, we may have a soft landing. I don't think we will. I think we're going into some rocky times. It's just a matter of, I just think it's going to happen. There are some good signs, but there are a lot of bad signs. And so I would really encourage you to get your career plan in place, start networking. And even if you don't get laid off, that's going to protect you in the future. Having a network is like having equity in a house. It's your career equity. So you may not need to worry about it, but I would suggest that just because you do a good job and you have a good relationship with your boss, it's never that easy. It's never that secure. So pay attention. And I don't know what industry you're in, but there are a lot of industries like healthcare, publishing, manufacturing. They're all facing challenges. Okay. I hate the "what are your weaknesses" question. Boy, we get this question a lot. Why do they ask it? It seems so middle school. Ooh. This is from Anonymous in Los Angeles. Let me tell you, some people say, I don't like that question, I'm not going to answer it. Well, you do that at your own peril. Okay, matter of fact, don't do that. Don't be that crazy about that question. It's asked to measure your emotional intelligence. Now, there's a lot of better ways to ask that question, but that's the way it's asked a lot. I've asked that question many, many times when I spent 27 years in recruiting at the executive level, and I worked all over the world. And you're always trying to understand what people's emotional intelligence is. What do they think their weaknesses are? If you don't want to talk about your weaknesses, that tells me something that I don't really care for in an applicant. So what do? You turn it around and make something funny or positive out of it. I had a candidate once that laughed at me and he said, maybe we better call my wife and she can tell us. And everybody, when I was videoing the interview for the board that I was presenting this candidate to, and everybody around the board table laughed. And so sometimes you can do that. So one person said, I'm really chatty. It's really good when I'm selling and I can make a lot of contacts and it's good for networking. But sometimes, it's just a little bit too much. My father once said you could chat up a brick wall. Well, sometimes you say the answer for the example here is sometimes your strengths become your weaknesses, and that's just something I really watch very, very carefully. You're demonstrating emotional intelligence, and you're also demonstrating your sense of humor. So I hope that helps the question. Don't get irritated when it's asked. Work hard to come up with some examples. Don't diss the interviewer. Don't put them down. Don't be sarcastic, but come up with something that is a little bit amusing, and that's you can look online for quotes or other examples. It doesn't have to be creative. I mean, there's not many new ideas out there. In your last newsletter, you talked about the black hole of recruiting. Could you explain that to me? This comes from Tanner in Albuquerque. Well, Tanner, the black hole of recruiting, that's what happens if you send a generic resume into the ATS, the applicant tracking system, and you don't use any keywords and you really just use the same resume you've been using, or you've got too many misspelled words or some grammatical errors. Sometimes the algorithm will just eject that resume. It won't consider it, and it's dumped out of the system. They don't save those resumes, and the joke is it goes into a black hole. That's the sort of a metaphorical sort of description. That's what it means. Okay. I just moved to East Texas. Do you ever do live events? This is from Rose in Nacogdoches. Rose, it's great to have you in East Texas. Nacogdoches is the home of one of the University of Texas's newest affiliates, Stephen F. Austin State University. No, I do not do many live events. I is a small company. Live events are really capital intensive. and they can be risky. If you don't, you sign a contract with a hotel, and if people then don't show up, you lose a lot of money. We are doing some virtual events, and Rose, in April, we're going to be announcing next week the date for our boot camp in April. It's a 3-hour Saturday morning event, and it's going to probably be toward the end of April. And hopefully we're going to have a guest speaker, either live or they're going to be recorded on some important subjects. And we hope you'll join us. And guess what, Rose? It's going to be free. 3 hours of free coaching, free information to help you improve your career. Okay. Let's see. This is okay. I know you ran an EMS company in Tyler. I'm in Tyler, Texas. It was the home of one time an organization called East Texas Medical Center Regional Healthcare System. They had a huge EMS system, and I inherited that as one of my operating responsibilities. What do you think about the city of Fort Worth taking over MedStar? Okay, well, this is sort of inside business question, and it's from Michael. Michael, I think it's unfortunate. MedStar was always, it was an organization we patterned ourselves after. It was always a very, very innovative organization, but with taxes, and they have a fire chief in Fort Worth. It's, he denies wanting to run EMS, but he can be a real patoot. It's going to cost a lot of money for the city to take that on. MedStar is not just Fort Worth, it's a whole regional area. And if Fort Worth drops out, it's probably going to really destroy the whole system. And they have a beautiful facility. They've done some incredibly innovative things about helping patients get to the hospital or clinics and triage and things like this. So it's unfortunate. I think they've done a study, and that's to be determined. Okay, I'm finishing up my master's degree in healthcare administration. I have been awarded a 14-month fellowship in DFW. I like hospitals, but the competition for jobs is pretty intense. What advice can you provide? This is from Maddie, and there is no city. Okay, I don't know where she's at completing her master's degree. There are so many things happening in healthcare. That was my original area of expertise. I started out as a newspaper reporter and ended up as a crime writer and investigative reporter for the now defunct Houston Post in Houston back in the 70s. Boy, that was when the streets were pretty mean and was a lot of crime. So I stayed very busy. And I went into healthcare PR and then moved on into aviation. And so I've had a really great career. But and my career is, for the most part, not all the time, but it's pretty much touched healthcare in one shape, form, or fashion. There is so much happening in healthcare now. Absolutely innovation. There are new forms of home care. There's care in the home. There are emergency or non-emergency, but in the home emergency care, ambulatory care in the home. There's a lot of care management, a lot of case management, a lot of companies are getting into value-based pricing. So there are a lot of things going to happen. In fact, the big hospitals are going to start to slowly shrink over time because now less and less of the care is going to be done in the hospital. Hospitals are not safe places to be. They're rife with infection, and it's I several years ago had a major procedure done, and I was in the hospital for 5 days and then in rehab for 5 days, and I was just glad to get out without getting an infection. I know that's a problem, and so I would explore doing your fellowship. We'll have primary responsibilities. I assume you have a fellowship with a hospital. Those are the people that usually offer those fellowships. I would, while you're doing your studies and learning about the hospital operation, if that's what this is, also find people you can talk to and have coffee with on Saturdays or have telephone conversations with about other elements of healthcare in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, because it's really booming. There's a lot of consolidation too. So there you go. Okay, here is that AI question I told you we're going to have. New York City recently passed an AI law that, as I understand it, protects applicants who do not want their resumes evaluated by the AI bots. It also requires employers to disclose if the AI will make a final hiring decision. What is your take on this situation? Can you provide us with some more information? This is from Rodrigo in Queens. I was not aware of this initially. It is Public Law 144, and it covers New York City and the 5 boroughs. It does not cover New York State or any other jurisdictions. It's the first of its kind in the U.S. The law requires that employers, I'm going to read this because I've done some reading on it, and this is my summary. The law requires that employers use software to assist to assist with hiring and promotion decisions, from chatbots to conducting interviews to resume scanners, which we call applicant tracking systems, that use algorithms and keywords. It requires them to audit this for bias and against racial and gender bias and age bias, and then they are required to publish the results. Now, AI, when you're applying for a job, it also gives you the option to opt out, to say, we don't want the computer reading my resume. Okay, well, let's break this down. Okay, it's a good idea that there's going to be some check on this, although I think this law is, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with this. I doubt that it's going to be a major factor. A lot of companies are already saying, hey, we don't use it to make those kinds of decisions. And so it's been, during the time it's been in effect, they've only had 18 companies out of 400 or 500 that have initially expressed interest in this in law. There's only been 18 that published any audit results, okay? Now, the next thing I would tell you is, you may not like the applicant tracking system because you probably don't know how to deal with the applicant tracking system, and there is some magic to it, and it's not a certain thing. They take algorithms and they create an algorithm around the qualifications, years, experience, type of experience, etc. And they create algorithms about other elements of your experience, college degree, master's degree, any bit certifications, all those things. And during the course of that, they're looking for experience. Have you been involved in running a division or doing turnarounds or whatever? They factor all those elements into the algorithm, and they'll write that out in a narrative form in the job summary. What you're supposed to do is take words out of that job summary and use it in your resume so that the computer can recognize it more easily that you have the experience. You can be a 90%, and you probably don't need to be applying for jobs unless you have 80 to 90% of everything they're looking for, because you're probably going to get kicked out. The big brouhaha that started because so many, of all the resumes submitted online, only about seven to eight or 7 is about right. I apologize. I'm trying to do some math in my head. Bad idea to do math on stage. That of 10 resumes sent, only 2 or 3 are ever seen by human eyes. All right. Before they had ATS, they had people looking at resumes, and there were so many in big companies. There were so many of these resumes that they were just going through them, screening them really fast. In the search business, when I got started, there was none of this was available. Do you know how much time we've spent on an initial review of an application? The resume? About 20 seconds. About 20 seconds, because we had so much work to do. And in addition to reviewing resumes, you're interviewing people, you're looking for new business for your firm, you're traveling, and so it's a bad deal. So now, if you look at Indeed, Zip, iHire, they're all using a form of computer assist to help them, evaluate the resume and then route it to the right recruiter or route it to the right job. So if you start saying, I don't want AI, or I don't want AI reviewing my resume, what you may be asking for is for your resume not to get reviewed at all. Okay? The companies under the New York law and under any other circumstance are not, if you demand that somebody personally look at your resume, they are under no obligation to do that. So my recommendation is learn how to use the AI algorithm, applicant tracking systems. And I've done some writing on this. I've got some videos on YouTube. Check them out, but don't knock the system. Don't try to go back in time because it's not going to be a good result for you. People want to they're lazy. They don't want to really spend the time developing their resume and then customizing their resume, and that's really unfortunate. Okay, well, we got off to a late start today. We got 2 or 3 minutes left. Let me try to work in one more question. Why do recruiters not call you back, even to tell you that you didn't get the job? In another search, they promised to call me on a Wednesday, then radio silence. I learned from a friend who works in the company and who recommended they hire me. They said, hey, they hired somebody else. That's rude. How do they keep their jobs? Well, it is rude. There's no excuse for it. I will tell you this on a broader scale. Anybody that's done search, me included, we've dropped the ball on communication before. We've missed deadlines on calling people back before. Sometimes you get hung up because planes are late or you're delayed in travel time, and you really can't, and you're not in a position to have that kind of confidential call. In other cases, we're held up by the client. Now, when I was recruiting, I always tried to send out, this is our schedule, this is what we're going to do. Early applicants, we'd have dozens and dozens. We would just send them an email if they weren't going to be considered. But once we got you into the system and evaluated your resume, if you did not get picked, even in an early stage, we tried to call you. And then the finalists, everybody got a personal phone call. Now, did we make mistakes every once in a while? Yes, when you have that many people and you're doing 4 or 5 searches at a time, it's easy to do. It's not right. It's not acceptable. Now, are there recruiters that just don't do it because they don't like the potential conflict, or they don't like telling somebody, I'm sorry you didn't get a job? Oh, man, there are boatloads of those people. And there are boatloads of people that have no presence or self-awareness about the importance of having good relationships. If you're a corporate recruiter and you treat your candidates badly, what is that saying about your company's brand? And when you treat people badly enough, they talk about that. And before long, you're going to realize you're not getting the top applicants if you're a corporate recruiter. So that's really something that people need to consider. Recruiters are very busy. They have a function to play. Their function is changing with AI. I think you're going to see fewer recruiters, probably fewer search firms, and there's already a lot of consolidation occurring in the search industry. And the search firms that were once primarily just big global search firms are now branching out into consulting. So everything's changing. It's pretty dramatic. And check out our newsletter at Substack. It's Guiding Your Career. Good information in the current newsletter. Next week we're doing we do a weekly newsletter. Next week we're focusing on why it's so important, why it is so really important for you to learn how to adapt your job hunting skills and your career management activities. Career management is not looking for a job. It's managing your brand, it's building your network, and it's being job search ready. And in the crazy, uncertain economy that we're currently in, that is an important element. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you next Friday. Hopefully we're not going to have all these technical glitches again, but next Friday at 11 a.m. for Your Career Community. And if you have questions, please send them in advance at info@johngself.com. Thanks, everybody. It's great seeing you. Have a great weekend.